Hi, I am Amanda Park, and this is my personal introduction for special education for building administrators. A little bit about me to begin. This is an introduction of my family. My immediate family consists of me and my husband and our four children. We've been very blessed. You will see a picture there of our youngest son, and he was our miracle baby. He was born about 14 weeks early at 2 pounds, and he was in the NICU for 85 days. Today, he's thriving. The other three pictures at the top, you will see of me and my husband at Chiefs games. We absolutely love to frequent our Chiefs games. Go Chiefs. At the bottom in the left hand corner, you will see our oldest daughter, Dakota, and she is a volleyball player. She plays in a very competitive league with very competitive teams, and she is just accepted a position with a team who is nationally ranked, and she's very excited to get started with that. In the next picture, you will see our other three children. You will see Houston, he is 8, Natalie, she is 6, and our youngest is our miracle baby, Asher, and he is 3 now. He just turned 3. In the bottom right-hand corner, you will see a myriad of pictures of me and my husband. He was in Germany for 2 years, and while he was in Germany, we traveled to a lot of life-changing places. He is active duty Army. We're very blessed for his service, and we were very blessed to be able to have that opportunity to travel. My personal versus professional life. My personal life, I'm very family-oriented. I grew up and graduated from high school in Augusta, Kansas. I was born in Alamogordo, New Mexico at Holloman Air Force Base. I come from a military family. In fact, from my grandparents down through my brother, including my husband, our family has given over 100 years of service. And so that's really exciting and a special aspect of our family. I'm an Army wife. We've been married for a year and 8 months. And again, our four kids are 14, 8, 6, and 3. My hobbies, I love to play softball. I love to work out and stay active, and I love to read. But of course, I always love to, I prefer to read anything that I want to rather than what I have to. And I know we all kind of feel that way. I love to travel and go Chiefs. My professional life, I went to Friends University. I graduated with 3 bachelor's degrees in Spanish education, English education, and Spanish culture and language. I then went back and sometimes I tell people I'm a professional student. I seem to keep going back to school, but I love it, and that's part of one of the reasons that I am an educator. So I went back and I got a master's of global leadership and management, which is basically an international business degree. Within my teaching experience, my very first teaching job was at Wellington High School. I taught English for 4 years. I then went to Blue STEM and taught at the middle school and high school both. For 2 years, I taught Spanish and technology. And then I ended up at Wichita Southeast High School for 7 years. And I kind of feel like that Southeast High School and with the Wichita district was my educational home. I then came here to Junction City High School. I was here for a year. When my husband was moved, he had to PCS here to Fort Riley, and that's where we currently reside. My professional thoughts and ideas on education. First of all, education is definitely a business. And without a buy in any business, there simply is no profit. And for us, the profit is the success of our students. So for us, our students and our teachers are going to be our customers, and it is incredibly important for them to have that buy in. Professionalism is a huge key factor, and without collaboration and trust established through value and vision, the buy-in will not take place and the professionalism will not either. So, what is inclusion or inclusive education? Inclusion is a belief system, and it's not just a set of strategies. We seem to want to always put in place strategies in order to make things happen. But when a belief system is present, those strategies will naturally take place in a more natural manner. The inclusive school culture, members are going to work hard to find ways to include all stakeholders in the process, whether it be for students, staff, parents, all of the above. Any type of building that has an unfriendly atmosphere is going to have students who feel that aspect of unfriendly nature, and they're going to be disengaged and they're not going to enjoy being in that atmosphere. Parents are also going to feel whether or not the school atmosphere and culture is positive or negative. And that school climate, when they visit the school, can make a huge difference in their child's education. Because the less parental involvement we have due to that negative school climate or environment, it means that there is an established culture that seems to be uncaring or unwilling to work with their children. If we do it correctly, our students and our parents can be our best allies when we are teaching, when we're educating, and when we're changing lives. Instead of being the biggest critics that we have, they can become our best allies. They can be our biggest cheerleaders, and we should also be their biggest allies and their biggest cheerleaders in the process as well. The absolute best school systems include parents and engage all students at all times. There are different feelings of inclusion versus exclusion. And you guys have all heard this saying that people won't always remember what you say, but they will remember the way you make them feel. And so when you have this feeling of inclusion versus exclusion, it makes a big difference. So, just a few of the inclusion, you have happy, excited, comfortable, recognized, confident, appreciated, reinforced. But if they're feeling excluded, they're going to be angry and resentful. There's going to be a lot of those negative feelings. And we want to try to avoid those feelings of exclusion. The legal basis for inclusion comes, of course, through education policy and public law, and that is going to be through IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This does not ever state the word inclusion or even inclusive education. However, the act does say that there has to be a least restrictive environment, and we refer to that as the LRE. This is a key element of this law. And the courts, with the help of IDEA, have made some clarifications, such as school districts have to consider placement in general education for all students, and that is students with disabilities, regardless of what degree of those disabilities. And once that consideration is taken place, then we can make modifications as necessary. The academic and social benefits must be taken into consideration as well, and that is for general education. And it has to be more than just this token gesture of, oh, let's go through the process. It needs to be heartfelt. It needs to have merit. So, placement in the LRE is not simply just dumping kids into an environment for the sake of dumping kids into an environment. It's placing students with these disabilities with their necessary support services and aids to help them through the general education process. Strategies for action for inclusion and inclusive education. We have to value what each student brings. We need to understand culture and identity and languages. We need to develop learner profiles for each and one of our kids. We need to include in their profiles their home languages and cultures. Knowing the learner is going to be half the battle. And that's basically forming those relationships with kids. We need to establish respectful class climate, and this goes back to that building feeling of culture in a positive manner as well. Learn about diversity and equity together. Have high expectations. Even though we have kids who we say have disabilities, and I really, in my personal opinion and professional opinion as well, I am not a big fan of calling kids with disabilities. I don't think kids are disabled in any way. I think they learn differently. And so for us, having high expectations for those kids is important. If we don't have high expectations for all kids, they know that we don't have high expectations for them. And they feel like the reason we don't is because we don't expect them to do well in the first place. And so kids with learning differences and with what our culture has deemed as disabilities need those high expectations just as well as all of our general education kids. Support student leadership. We need to support all of our kids in leadership no matter what background they come from. And we have to strengthen a supportive peer culture. Our kids need to support one another. We need a plan for everyone to participate and achieve. And whether it's differently or the same, We need to create flexible learning environments for our kids because, again, they all learn differently. We need to focus on what a student can do and what their next steps should be. We need to always be pushing them to that next level. And seeking student feedback is incredibly important. As teachers, teachers need to be asking for that feedback every semester. What did you learn this semester that was provided by me as a classroom teacher? What did I do for you? What can I further do for you as a student? And that needs to be heartfelt and genuine as well. And we have to kind of take those with a grain sometimes as teachers to know which kids are providing heartfelt feedback and which ones are simply playing around with the process. Strategies for action for the inclusion process. So we need to take a community approach. It is going to take everyone. And we need to make sure that everyone who comes into our buildings is felt they feel welcome in our buildings. Students need to help one another. We need to have a good peer culture with one another. They need to be there for each other. Staff need to do the same way. We need to model what we want our kids to do. And when we do that, the kids will see the collaboration that our staff has together and how they have each other's backs and they're always there for one another. And that will help the students with their peer interaction as well. We need staff and students to treat one another with respect. We need to cross those boundaries as far as between staff and students and respect. And we need to come together and respect one another in our respective positions. We need to make sure there's a partnership between staff and parents. And this is incredibly important because parents, again, are either our biggest critic or our biggest advocate. And with our kids, that's going to be one of the most important advantages to their success. All local communities need to be involved within the schools. We need to bridge that gap between the community and the education. We need to build those relationships with the local community and the businesses because when we bridge that gap, and we bring everybody together, then our kids know that the community has their back as well as the school. When we involve the local community and cultural groups, we also let those kids know that we feel that they are important and their culture and their environment and their community is important as well. And when we involve those past students, our kids are going to see we don't just shove them out the door and hope they do well in the future. When we keep that communication with them, they see that the respect and the care and the building of that relationship is really truly genuine. So these are ways to include everyone in this inclusive school environment. First of all, use inclusive language for all races, genders, sexual orientations. We don't want to talk poorly about others. We want everyone to feel welcome. We need to include diverse literature in our classrooms and libraries. And we need to adopt character words, respect, honesty, integrity, acceptance. When we use these words consistently, our kids know that we're serious. It's important for administrators to send staff research based articles that focus on respect with school cultures, as well as in respect to inclusiveness about those school cultures and about the cultures, languages, and backgrounds of our kids. We need to send staff research based articles that also address bullying so that we are addressing a key factor in all schools. And that is, let's get back to the basics of teaching do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We need to discuss the need for inclusive school cultures at faculty meetings and make sure that everybody's on the same page and produce communication between one another so that we all stay on the same page. In some ways, it would be a great idea for the districts that are able to create a principals advisory council or cabinet, or what a lot of districts call a PAC. And this focuses on the school culture and the climate itself. People get together and brainstorm ways to create a more accepting school, whether it's the building, the system, or the district as a whole. And when they do this, again, they all come together for the same purpose on the same page and are able to better communicate those ways out to everyone else. When you do this, it's important to not have a whole bunch of goals that you're trying to meet because then you never really meet any of those goals. So when you collaborate with the team, it's important to establish one focus or one goal. And once that's achieved, then yes, let's move on. Let's create another goal and let's keep moving forward. When we make an action plan, that action plan will help us to establish or achieve that one goal and then reestablish and re-achieve later in the process. And then we need to train our staff to address issues that they see and they hear in the classroom as well as in the hallways and everywhere they are. We need to make sure that that culture and the climate is not just in our classrooms, but we need to carry that throughout the building, throughout the premises, and throughout the district as well. So there are 7 ways that education leaders can work to create inclusive academic settings. And when done correctly, these will support our students of all races, all academic classes, all academics in any way, shape, or form. So number one is the academic support. So when we have inclusive learning, um, the school provides academic support services to make sure that all students have the opportunity to not just grow, but to thrive. There's flexible pacing, we have reading specialists, we have tutoring, we have help needed for any students who need that help. And we have to make sure that they're not afraid to ask for help, that we are not providing help in such a way that it is in a negative fashion, so that if our kids feel like they need help, they're not afraid to ask for that help. We need to prepare teachers. Of course, highly trained teachers are always going to be vital to the education process and to educating our youth. And teachers need to hold students to high expectations. So, as administrators, when we hold our teachers to high expectations, again, we're modeling what our teachers want. We want our teachers to do. And when we hold our students to those high expectations, um, they see not just in the process of the teachers holding them to high expectations, but they see that their teachers are also held to those high expectations. We need to close achievement gaps and help students to understand how what we teach them connects to the real world. We have to have a real world strategy. We need to work through education, integrating student bodies, adjusting our ranking calculations, taking into account the population, the intercultural knowledge that we have, and the diversity of our community. We need to create respectful community within our school, not just in the school itself, not just in the district itself, but within the larger community, our business community, our living community. And we need to create spaces for discussion, because it's important to have discussion where we can include all opinions, all ideas, and be respectful of all of those opinions and ideas as we go. So when we restructure for inclusion, there needs to be a belief that each student can and will learn and succeed. Again, is that high expectations. We expect you will learn. We expect that you have the ability. We expect that you will have the knowledge when you leave. And when we have those high expectations, they do learn. We need to know that diversity enriches us all. And I think there are 2 things to remember. Number one, we are all so much alike in so many ways. And I think sometimes we forget how alike we are, because we're always realizing and seeing our differences. And I think our differences are important because our differences make us unique. But we also need to remember that human nature makes us all the same as well. Students at risk are able to overcome a risk for failure through involvement. And when we have caring community members, when we have caring educators, everyone in this community of learners will be able to not just be involved, but they will overcome a risk of failure through the involvement with those caring individuals. Each student, every person, every educator, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, we all have needs, and we have to identify that in our kids. We have to remember our kids are human beings, and they're going to have those same strengths, weaknesses, and needs as well. Services and supports need to be relegated to one setting, or not be relegated to one setting. They need to be readily available for our kids in any setting that they're in. And so when we hold it to one setting, like a special education class, or just one school building, or just one area of the school, we're not doing a service to our kids that we need to do. Each student has unique contributions. And like I was talking about with those differences and similarities, our differences and our diversity make us unique. And so each one of those unique contributions, we have that to offer to other people. Our students have that to offer to other learners, their peers. As teachers, we have that to offer to not just our peers, but our kids. So it's important to know that our unique contributions, our stories, and what makes us a contributing member of the learning environment, those things are important. Effective learning results from collaborative efforts of everyone. And when we collaborate well, we are going to better ensure that our students do succeed. Equity. Equity is important. And when we intervene, we can provide equity. It means raising the expectations for everyone. Everyone has an equitable stake in this business of education. We're not going to compromise anyone's ability to learn or anyone's uniqueness or anyone's diversity or anyone's ability to add value to the education process. Equal access to a college and career ready program is incredibly important. And we need our kids to know that everyone has access to what they need. And we need to provide them with options so that they see that they have access to anything that they might need for their futures. And the hardest part is going to be preparing our students, of course. But I think that when we develop relationship, we're going to it's going to make the process of preparing them easier. And our best practices are going to be understanding and supporting deficits. And when we do that, we eliminate excuses. And that's incredibly important, especially with kids. We know that kids all have their excuses. But it's also going to be important when we look at this from an aspect of an administrator's perspective on our teachers. We have to eliminate excuses across the board. We need to own up to our mistakes and our failures and use those as learning blocks to continue to learn and to thrive. Raise every student beyond their own expectations. We need to push kids to do what they didn't even think was possible. And when we do that, we earn their respect and we also earn them for a lifetime. We need to collaborate to find solutions, and we need to come together and hear one another and compromise and look at the one goal of that conversation and discussion is a solution to supporting the achievement of our kids. And ultimately, we need to all keep in mind that the success and the achievement of our kids is what our ultimate goal is for them to have a future success. Two key factors that we need to bring away when we have this discussion is number one, the standard for denying inclusion or inclusive education to a student with disabilities is very high. And we must create, cherish, and nurture schools that include and effectively educate all kids of all backgrounds and all nature. Thank you so much.